On October 23rd, the basketball world was shaken by shocking news that Chauncey Billups had allegedly become involved in a mafia-linked gambling scandal. The revelation sent shockwaves throughout the sports community, leaving both fans and analysts in disbelief. When asked to comment on the controversy, Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, offered his reaction, adding his voice.
I know everybody that's at play, and I don't like to sit up here and be hypocritical about certain things.
Voice to the growing conversation surrounding the unfolding scandal. That likely meant only one thing. He knew. In this video, I'll show you new footage of NBA players pleading with Chauncey Billups not to reveal their names. The shock was felt across the entire league. On October 23, 2025, the basketball world woke up to utter chaos. A day that will forever be remembered as one of the darkest moments in NBA history. While fans across the country were eagerly anticipating the start of a brand new season, federal authorities were simultaneously carrying out a massive operation that would shake professional basketball to its very core. This wasn't just another story of athletes making reckless decisions. What unfolded was something far more sinister, meticulously planned, and devastating beyond imagination. Within hours, headlines dominated every sports network, social media feeds were flooded, and national news outlets couldn't talk about anything else. Reports confirmed that Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier had been arrested by the FBI. But this was no routine arrest. It was the culmination of a multi-year federal investigation. Authorities had uncovered an underground network so sophisticated, so technologically advanced, and so deeply intertwined with...
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Casa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than
organized crime that it made even the most gripping Hollywood thrillers seem mild in comparison. When FBI Director Kash Patel stepped up to the podium, flanked by officials from multiple federal agencies, including the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, the NYPD, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Waterfront Commission, it was immediately clear that this was no ordinary press conference. The presence of the FBI director himself signaled the gravity of the situation. Such involvement is typically reserved for cases of national importance. As Patel began to speak, the true magnitude of what had been uncovered became chillingly apparent. Investigators had revealed not one, but two massive criminal operations that had been running side by side. At times, these networks intersected. At others, they operated independently, but both had a shared goal: to defraud victims, manipulate outcomes, and generate tens of millions of dollars through illegal means. The first operation, codenamed Operation Nothing But Bet, centered on insider sports betting within the NBA. According to investigators, players and coaches had allegedly leaked confidential information, including player availability, injuries, and strategic game plans, to organized betting rings. These groups would then place massive wagers on prop bets with outcomes that were virtually guaranteed. The second operation, known as Operation Royal Flush, was even more elaborate and far more disturbing. It exposed a nationwide network of rigged high-stakes poker games backed by four major mafia families: the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese organizations. Working together, these groups orchestrated what prosecutors described as one of the most sophisticated...
I led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra, to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese
gambling
crime
fraud schemes ever uncovered in U.S. history. The numbers alone were staggering. More than 30 individuals arrested across 11 states, facing charges that included wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, and even armed robbery. At the center of it all were names that every basketball fan knew. Names once synonymous with greatness, championships, and the aspirations of countless young athletes. Chauncey Billups, affectionately known as Mr. Big Shot, was a five-time NBA All-Star and the 2004 Finals MVP who had famously led the Detroit Pistons to a championship victory. Just a year earlier, in 2024, he had been inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, capping off a career celebrated for leadership and integrity. Since 2021, Billups had served as the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, a role he held with widespread respect. The question haunting everyone was simple yet unsettling. How could someone who had achieved everything the game had to offer end up in handcuffs, facing federal charges that could potentially imprison him for decades? Then there was Terry Rozier, just 31 years old, in the prime of his career, playing under a 4-year, $96.3 million contract with the Miami Heat. Known for his explosive scoring and charismatic personality, Rozier seemed to have everything to lose. Yet, according to federal prosecutors, he allegedly risked it all for what amounted to pocket change compared to his NBA salary. The accusations against him were both detailed and damning. Prosecutors claimed Rozier provided insider information about his own performances, allegedly texting associates in advance to say he would fake injuries and leave games early, giving illegal betting rings a guaranteed edge on under-prop bets. The most notorious example came from a March 23, 2023 matchup between the Charlotte Hornets and the New Orleans Pelicans. On that night, Rozier allegedly texted his childhood friend, Dyro Lur, stating he would fake a shoulder injury and exit the game prematurely. True to his word, Rozier played just 9 minutes and 34 seconds before leaving. Meanwhile, the betting syndicate, armed with the insider tip, wagered over $200,000 on under bets for Rozier's points, rebounds, and assists. When he left the game, those bets hit, and the group reportedly collected huge payouts. According to court documents, the cash was later delivered to Rozier's home, where it was allegedly counted and divided. But the story didn't stop there. It took an even darker and more bizarre turn in the days that followed. Social media erupted with claims of new footage, supposedly showing NBA players begging Chauncey Billups not to reveal their names in connection with the scandal. The rumor spread like wildfire, spawning memes, conspiracy threads, and rampant speculation about who else might be involved. Fans began questioning whether entire teams, or even the NBA itself, had been compromised. However, after thorough reviews of verified news reports, federal indictments, court filings, and credible social media sources, there is no evidence that any such footage exists. No videos have surfaced, no audio recordings have been released, and no players have been seen pleading with anyone. It appears to be yet another case of internet rumor and speculation spiraling out of control, fueled by the shocking nature of the arrests and the public's appetite for scandal. What is real, though, and documented in painstaking detail by federal investigators, is far more disturbing than any rumor. This was not the work of a few reckless athletes making poor choices. It was a systematically organized criminal enterprise that had been operating for years. Investigators revealed that prominent NBA figures were recruited as what prosecutors called face cards, celebrities whose fame and credibility.
Fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
Were exploited to lure wealthy individuals into high-stakes poker games that were rigged from the very beginning. According to the indictments unsealed on October 23, the poker scheme alone defrauded victims of at least $715 million, though investigators believe the actual figure could be much higher as more victims continue to come forward. One individual reportedly lost $1.8 million in a single rigged game. These were not backroom poker sessions in smoky basements. They were high-stakes, meticulously orchestrated events held in some of the most exclusive locations across the United States. Luxury estates in the Hamptons, private suites in Las Vegas, upscale venues in Miami, and lavish penthouses in Manhattan. The victims believed they were participating in legitimate poker games alongside NBA legends and current players. They thought they were testing their skill and luck in fair competition. What they didn't realize, what they couldn't have known, was that the entire setup was a scam. Every person at the table except them was part of the con. The dealer was in on it, the other players were accomplices, and even the so-called face cards, the celebrities and athletes whose fame lent the games an air of credibility, were allegedly complicit. According to federal prosecutors, Chauncey Billups participated in at least one of these rigged games in 2019, during which victims were defrauded of $50,000. Investigators claim the proceeds were divided among the cheaters, dealers, and organizers. But Billups' alleged involvement didn't stop there. Court documents suggest he may have played a deeper role in the broader NBA betting conspiracy, identified as co-conspirator 8, described as an Oregon resident, a former NBA player active from 1997 to 2014, and a coach since 2021. Those details align almost perfectly with Billup's biography. If proven true, the allegations suggest Billups leaked insider information to the betting syndicate, including tips that the Portland Trail Blazers would rest key players ahead of their matchup against the Chicago Bulls on March 24, 2023. That game ended in a stunning 28-point loss for Portland, and, according to reports, a major payday for the betting network. As prosecutors dug deeper, tracing the flow of money and mob connections, they uncovered a sprawling and sophisticated criminal enterprise that had been years in the making. This wasn't a loose collection of gamblers operating in secrecy. It was a carefully engineered system combining cutting-edge technology, old-school mafia tactics, and the glamour of celebrity, creating what investigators described as the perfect storm of fraud. The poker operation, which began around 2019, relied on a strict hierarchy in which each participant played a defined role in manipulating wealthy targets, referred to internally as fish. These victims were systematically drained of their fortunes without ever realizing they were surrounded by predators. This was no street-level hustle. The syndicate was powered by some of the most notorious organized crime families in American history. Criminals armed not only with guns and intimidation but also with access to advanced surveillance tools, encrypted communications, and insider connections. Backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families, the operation blurred the line between sports, celebrity, and organized crime, exposing a dark underbelly of corruption that few could have imagined lurking beneath the polished surface of professional basketball.
In the New York area were backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families of La Cosa Nostra.
The collaboration among four separate La Cosa Nostra families, the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese organizations, was almost unprecedented, underscoring the staggering profits at stake. Traditionally, these crime families operate independently within distinct territories, often clashing over turf and business interests. For all four to cooperate on a single operation suggested that the financial rewards from the rigged poker games were so immense that unity proved more lucrative than rivalry. Federal authorities confirmed that at least 13 defendants in the poker case had direct ties to these mafia families, including high-ranking capos, captains, and made men who had sworn blood oaths of loyalty. These weren't fringe associates. They were full-fledged members of the Italian-American mafia, overseeing the scam and allegedly using NBA players and coaches as bait. At the center of that web, Chauncey Billups allegedly played a pivotal role as a face card, a recognizable, trusted public figure used to lure in wealthy victims. Imagine being a millionaire investor or hedge fund manager invited to an exclusive poker game featuring an NBA Hall of Famer. Seeing Billups' name on the guest list would make anyone feel at ease. Why would a Hall of Fame coach risk his reputation on something shady? They might think. That false sense of security was exactly what the organizers were counting on. Billups wasn't alone. Damian "DJ" Jones, a former NBA player and assistant coach for teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and Miami Heat, was also arrested and charged in both the poker and betting schemes. Prosecutors allege that Jones served as a crucial link between the two operations, leveraging his NBA connections to obtain insider information about injuries and game strategies, while also appearing at poker games to lend legitimacy to the events. The technology used in these poker operations was astonishingly advanced. Investigators seized custom-modified Deckmate 2 shuffling machines that had been purchased legally but secretly altered. Hidden cameras and wireless transmitters were embedded inside the devices, reading the order of every card through RFID chips or barcode scanners. That information was sent in real time to an off-site quarterback, who could see every player's hand. The quarterback then relayed this data back to conspirators at the table via encrypted phones, discrete earpieces, or coded gestures. In some venues, X-ray poker tables were installed, allowing conspirators using special glasses or hidden cameras to literally see through cards. Marked decks were used in conjunction with contact lenses that revealed invisible ink visible only to insiders. Even poker chip trays contained hidden cameras recording discarded cards. Every aspect of the game was rigged. There was virtually no way for a victim to win, and if someone began to get lucky, the game would conveniently pause, or the victim would be pressured into playing just one more hand until the conspirators recovered their losses. When victims couldn't pay their debts, the mafia's influence turned violent. The crime families not only financed and managed the operation but also enforced payments through intimidation and force. Federal indictments detailed incidents of threats, coercion, and at least one armed robbery connected to the scheme. In one case, Conspirators tracked down a victim who refused to pay and used threats of violence to collect the debt. In another, robbers stole a rigged shuffling machine at gunpoint to prevent its discovery by law enforcement. This wasn't white-collar crime, it was organized crime at its most brutal, where unpaid debts were settled through fear. The sports betting arm of the operation painted an equally grim picture for the NBA. Between December 2022 and March 2024, prosecutors alleged that the syndicate manipulated at least 7 NBA games using insider information about player availability, injuries, and unannounced strategies. The concept was devastatingly simple. Find someone inside an NBA organization, a player, coach, or staff member, willing to share confidential details before they became public. Armed with this intelligence, the betting ring could place massive wagers with near-certain outcomes. One of the clearest examples came from Terry Rozier, then playing for the Charlotte Hornets. On March 23, 2023, Rozier allegedly texted his childhood friend, Lillard, stating that he planned to fake a shoulder injury and exit the game early. Lillard and other syndicate members placed over $200,000 in under-prop bets on Rozier's points, rebounds, and assists. Rozier played just 9 minutes and 34 seconds before leaving, making every single bet hit. According to prosecutors, the group later divided the profits at Rozier's own home. Video footage of Rozier's early exit went viral, with millions of fans dissecting every movement, debating whether his injury was legitimate or staged. What made matters worse was that the NBA had already investigated that very game in 2023 after sportsbooks flagged suspicious betting activity. The league ultimately cleared Rozier due to insufficient evidence. However, federal investigators later built a much stronger case using wiretaps, subpoenas, and financial records, evidence the NBA never had access to. Rozier's alleged misconduct wasn't isolated. The indictments described multiple instances of insider betting. Damian Jones allegedly leaked information about LeBron James' unreported foot injury before a Lakers-Bucks game on February 9, 2023, and shared details about player availability ahead of a Lakers Thunder matchup on January 15, 2024. Another unnamed Orlando Magic player reportedly provided inside information before an April 2023 game against the Cavaliers, enabling the syndicate to profit on the spread. Then there was the mysterious co-conspirator 8, widely believed to be Chauncey Billups, described in the indictment as an Oregon resident, former NBA player, 1997 to 2014, and coach since 2021. This individual allegedly tipped off the betting ring that the Portland Trail Blazers would rest Damian Lillard, Jusuf Nurkic, Jeremy Grant, and Anthony Simons before their March 24, 2023 matchup against the Chicago Bulls, a game that ended in a 28-point loss and massive betting payouts. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of the October 23 arrests, the NBA released a statement affirming that it takes such allegations with the utmost seriousness, and that the integrity of the game remains our top priority. Behind the scenes, panic spread through league offices. Both Billups and Rozier were placed on indefinite leave, Billups replaced in Portland by assistant coach Tiago Splitter, and Rozier suspended by the Miami Heat pending legal proceedings. These suspensions could soon become permanent. Under Article 35 of the NBA Constitution, the Commissioner has authority to impose severe discipline for gambling-related offenses, including lifetime bans. The precedent was set in 2024 when Toronto Raptors player Jontay Porter received a lifetime ban for a similar prop betting scandal. If convicted of wire fraud conspiracy and money laundering conspiracy, Rozier could face up to 20 years per charge, lose his $96 million contract, and be permanently banned from the NBA. Billups' situation, while somewhat different, could still end his career. As head coach, he faces possible termination from the Trailblazers and suspension from all league operations. Even if acquitted, the damage to his reputation, built over a 17-year. Shaquille O'Neal's voice carried a rare mix of pain and authority as he addressed the scandal.
I know everybody that's at play, and I don't like to sit up here and be hypocritical about certain things.
Live on air. "Look, man, I've been around this game my whole life," he began, his tone heavy with emotion. "I've had people come up to me with inside info, with crazy offers, stuff that would make you think twice. But you gotta remember, the minute you take that money, the minute you cross that line, you're done. You lose everything. Your name, your legacy, your respect." He paused, visibly struggling to maintain composure before continuing. "I'm not here to judge anybody, but this one hurts. Chauncey's my guy. We came up together. He was one of the good ones. Smart, solid, respected. To even hear his name in something like this, it breaks my heart. Because this ain't just about one mistake. This kind of thing, it shakes trust in the whole league. Charles Barkley followed with his trademark bluntness. I've always said it, gambling and sports don't mix. You can't have guys on the inside messing with the product. Fans bet real money, they buy tickets, they invest their hearts in these games. Once they think it's rigged, it's over. Kenny Smith took a more reflective tone, adding, "What makes this so tough is that Chauncey wasn't just a player, he was a mentor, a leader. He represented what professionalism looked like. If even he got caught up in something like this, it shows how deep and dangerous this problem really is." The segment ended in an uncharacteristic silence. The usually lively panel sat quietly, acknowledging that this scandal would leave a mark not just on the NBA.
We all know the rules, we all know the letter of the law, and it's just unfortunate.
But on everyone who loved the game. Charles Barkley didn't hold back when reacting to the scandal. Speaking with his trademark candor, he said bluntly, "These guys are just stupid. You're making millions of dollars a year. Millions. And you risk all of it for what? 50 grand? 100 grand? That's tip money for them. It makes no sense." His words, though harsh, resonated deeply with fans and analysts alike, capturing the collective disbelief surrounding the situation. Barkley's comments pointed to the core question that baffled everyone. Why would someone like Terry Rozier, a player earning $26 million a year and in the prime of his career, risk everything just to help a friend cash in on small-time prop bets? And why would a respected Hall of Fame coach like Chauncey Billups, a man with a secure job, a sterling reputation, and the respect of generations of players, get mixed up in something as reckless as a mafia-backed poker ring? These questions went beyond money. They exposed a darker psychological truth about fame and fortune, that even those who seem to have it all can be tempted by greed, ego, or the dangerous thrill of risk. As Barkley summed it up, shaking
The reason I'm mad at Kenny is, man, this ain't got nothing to do with damn gambling addiction. This ain't got nothing to do with addiction. These dudes are stupid. Why are they stupid? Under no circumstances can you fix basketball games. Under no circumstances.
his head, some people just don't know how good they have it until it's gone. Kenny Smith offered a more empathetic and layered take on the unfolding scandal. While Charles Barkley dismissed the situation as a product of sheer stupidity and greed, Smith argued that gambling addiction might be the deeper force driving some of this behavior. He explained that addiction, whether to gambling, drugs, or anything else, can distort a person's judgment and compel them to make irrational choices, even when they have everything to lose. Addiction doesn't care how much money you make, Smith said. It clouds your judgment, it rewires your decision-making. You stop thinking about risk and start chasing the next rush. Smith referenced the FBI director's statement that one victim had lost $1.8 million in the rigged poker games, a staggering figure that illustrated how even the wealthy are not immune to addiction's grip. His comments shifted the conversation from one about moral failure to one about psychological struggle.